Hello and welcome. My name is Amanda and this is my channel, Her Pacific Northwest Washington Life. And today I wanted to share with you my first book UnHaul of the year. Some are books that I have read. Most are books I've read, some are books that I haven't. But just in a way to clean up my shelves to make them more about or a reflection of the books that I actually enjoyed and get books off my TBR that I'm no longer interested in. So I think I'll quickly start with the books I haven't read first. The first one I've got here is The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand. I think this is a dystopian book. I know it's a classic and I got it from my friend before she moved to Florida. And it's just a book that I'm not entirely sure what it's about. I think a lot of people like it, but I'm just not really interested in holding on to it. And if I do end up reading this, it'll be probably via audiobook and not in this mass market paperback version with like super tiny print. So that's the first one to go. The next one I have is Trapped in Hitler's Hell, which is a young Jewish girl discovers the Messiah's faithfulness in the midst of the Holocaust. This is by Anita Dittman with Jan Markell. I believe this is Anita's story of when she was in Germany and growing up as a young Jewish girl and how that impacted her life. I think this would be very impactful just to read from someone's point of view who experienced this, but it's not a story that I'm gravitating towards picking up, and I'd rather just not have it sit and collect dust on my bookshelves. I'd rather get it off to somebody who I think would be more inclined to pick this up sooner than I am. The next book I have, I bought solely because of the hype a couple years ago, and that's My Lady Jane by Cynthia Han, Brody Ashton, and Jody Meadows. This is part of is the series just called Jane's? I don't remember, but this one follows Lady Jane Grey. Is that her name? I don't really know. I just know I'm not very interested in reading it. I picked this up at my local used bookstore and I was really surprised to find it there. But it's just not a series that I really care to get into, and especially starting with this one. If it were My Plain Jane that started out the series, because that is like a Jane Eyre-esque book, I might have been more inclined, but I don't like to read things out of order and I'm just not really interested in this one. And the last book I have is a book I also got from my friend before she moved to Florida. And this is Life Behind Barbed Wire, which is the World War II internment memoirs of a Hawaiian ISSEI, I don't know how that's pronounced, by Yatsutaro Soga. I believe, yeah, so this follows a Hawaiian Japanese person during World War II after the events of Pearl Harbor. So I'm sure it's a lot about the unfairness of how Japanese were treated in America after the attack on Pearl Harbor by Japan. I think this would also be a really great story, but it's just not one that I've gravitated towards picking up since I got it. So I'd rather, again, just get this in someone else's hands versus keeping it on my bookshelves. So the next books I have, most of the reason, I think there's only one book I really didn't enjoy in this stack, and the rest are just books that I'm not gonna reread again, and they weren't like mind-blowing books, so I don't really care to keep them on my bookshelves. The first three I have are all Nicholas Sparks books. I have A Walk to Remember, I've got The Lucky One, and I've got Dear John. I think if I would like to, I'm not sure The Lucky One's a movie, but I know for sure that these two are, and if I want to revisit this story, I would do it in movie form versus book form, just because it's quicker that way and it would be a reread anyway. And The Lucky One, I don't really remember liking this story as much as some of the other John Green books. Why am I calling this John Green? These are Nicholas Sparks. I don't remember liking this as much as some of the other Nicholas Sparks books that I read, so just that one I'd like to pick back up. And then the other book is Charlie St. Cloud by Ben Sherwood. Again, if I wanted to revisit this story, I would watch Zac Efron's beautiful face in the movie and reread it that way, especially since this one is, it's got a kind of supernaturally element to it. So I feel like the big plot reveal is kind of spoiled. So I wouldn't want to revisit it as a book. I'd rather just watch it, is what I'm trying to say. The next book I have, I feel really bad about unhauling this one. It's got a gorgeous cover on it. It's The Essex Serpent by Sarah Perry. And my friend Bailey and I had this big dream and plan last year to do a blind date with a book for each other for every month of the year, and we only got through January. And this is the book she picked for me, which has a really intriguing premise. It follows a girl who's seeking refuge after the death of her husband, and she departs for a coastal town in England called Essex, where she's heard rumors about this mythical Essex serpent. She is introduced to a vicar named William, and they attempt to discover the truth, and those sorts of things. I didn't like the main character in this story. I thought she was just a not very nice person. There's adultery in this, and she's just mean. So I wouldn't really like to reread this story. I listened to it, I think, through Scribd, and all I can hope is that my friend enjoys this story more than I did. We do and we don't have similar tastes in books. We've both read, she's read all of the Outlander books. I've read all except for the last one. And she like loves the Outlander books and the story and all that stuff. She gets so swept away in it. And I love to hate on it more than anything. Like, I like the story, but I feel like it's getting a little redundant, and you know, Claire just gets herself into these shenanigans that she should know better than to do, and opening her mouth about things that maybe in 1950 or 1970 something is okay, but definitely not in 1750 or 1770, because they will get her branded as a witch and you know, things like that. So anyway, the point is that we've got different reading tastes. So I think she might enjoy this a bit more than I did, and I hope that's the case. I really wish I had liked this, but the main character just made it pretty unenjoyable for me, and nothing about the story really stuck. So it's kind of a book that I've lost sight of until I look at the cover and I'm like, oh man, that's really pretty, I should keep that. But I'm not going to do that. The next book I have is called I Am Livia by Phyllis T. Smith. I got this from a library book sale a couple years ago, and I didn't know that Livia is a real person in Roman history. So I think I would have enjoyed the story more had I known that going into this, and not thinking she was like a fictional character being thrown into like the Julius Caesar reign and things like that. I actually think this is the book that really got me and my friend Rainey over at Rainy Day Reads talking, because I think we read it around the same time. I remember chatting with her about it, and she also didn't know that Livia was a real person. So we were both like, oh, that would have been better to know as we were reading it if we had known from the get-go and not find out after. There's I think there's like an explanation at the end or something. But basically, this is the story of Livia as she is growing up in Rome. She's 14 years old, and she hears her father and some of his friends and advisors as they talk about their plan to overthrow and assassinate Julius Caesar. So it stems from there, and then her getting married off to one of these influential political figures, and then Julius Caesar's nephew, Caesar Octavianus, coming into power afterwards, and their relationship and things like that. So I think it's really interesting if you're interested in that time period. But again, I don't think it's something that I necessarily need to reread. If I want to learn more about Livia, then I will seek out other books that are written about her and read those. The next book I have is Do Over by Jon Acuff, which is a self-help book. The subtitle here is Rescue Monday, Reinvent Your Work and Never Get Stuck. So it's basically about finding that inspiration in the things you do again and steps to take in order to get there. I don't think I need to reread this. I really enjoyed it as I was reading it. It was really funny and not dry for a self-help book, but I don't think I would revisit this again when I need to like get myself out of any sort of work rut or things like that. So it'd be nice to get this in someone else's hands if they're feeling stuck and just kind of figure that out. And the last book I have is The Painted Girls by Cathy Marie Buchanan. And this book takes place in Paris in 1878 and follows two sisters. So we've got Marie, who is striving to become a ballerina, and we also have, what's the other sister's name? Antoinette, who was a ballerina, and she made some choices that got her kicked out of the ballet. And so it's kind of their story of survival after their father passes away, and how they can pull their mom out of her stupor and out of her just kind of unwillingness to face reality after losing her husband. She drowns herself in absinthe and things like that. So it's the girls' story about growing up and navigating their way through having to grow up a lot faster than they should have. I thought this was okay. I picked this up in the bargain section in Barnes & Noble a couple of years ago, and I thought the story was interesting enough, but I don't think it's one that I'd like to revisit. I did listen to this on audiobook, I think again through Scribd or maybe through my library. And I enjoyed it as I was reading, but I think there were some things that just didn't sit as well with me as maybe they could have or should have. So I just remember like not liking this book as much as I had kind of built it up and wanted to like it. So I'm gonna see if I think that friend who got me the Essex Urban, if she might like this, because her sister is a ballerina, and I think she might like to be in that world a little bit more than what she is in reality. So those are we've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, I think 12 books that I am going to unhaul. I'm gonna first see if my friend would like any of these books. And if not, once my used bookstore opens back up, I will be donating these to them, because I do get store credit and can then put that back into buying books off of them. So I like to build up my credit as much as possible and make sure that they've got good inventory of books as well. So that is everything. I would love to know if you've read any of these books and if you had similar or differing opinions from me. If so, please do let me know in the comments below, and I will chat with you there until my next video. Bye!